is underway. Now we move on. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has said that Russia is trying to sabotage Ukraine's domestic gas production. He has also confirmed that recent strikes on Russian infrastructure used Ukrainian-made missiles. This comes as Russia launched a massive missile and drone attack on Ukraine, killing at least 5 people, including 4 in Lviv. Fire broke out, damaging infrastructure and leaving parts of Lviv without power. Meanwhile, Ukraine overnight has attacked Russia's Belgorod region and knocked out power to thousands. Crews have restored supply to most, but 5,400 people remain without electricity. In Russia's south, a fire broke out at a security building in the Tuapse oil refinery after a drone attack. Now, for this discussion, we are joined by Professor Andrew Latham. He's a professor of international relations, joins us live from Minneapolis. Thank you, Professor, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, it seems like from both sides, the attacks keep escalating. What more can you tell us about this growing number of attacks?
Well, as the front line stabilizes, neither Russian nor Ukrainian forces are making any significant advances. Russia marginal, but at high cost. The real center of gravity in this conflict has shifted from the tactical to the strategic. And what that means is that Russia is looking to make this winter very uncomfortable for Ukrainians, very cold, hospitals shutting down, factories shutting down, apartments and houses not being heated, in order to undermine morale and undermine the capacity of the Ukrainians to sustain the efforts at the front line. On the other hand, the Ukrainians are looking to not freeze the Russians, but undermine their principal source of income, which is selling liquid natural gas and oil products on the international market. And so they're going after that infrastructure using increasingly homemade Ukrainian long-range weapons, although they would love to get hands on the U.S. Tomahawk cruise missile that would really enhance their reach, as it were. So the bottom line is shifting really the focus from the battlefield, which is frozen, to this strategic level in which both sides are going after each other's home front in different ways.
And how is the growing number of these attacks, including the drone sightings across Europe, is impacting the development of new security measures and defense measures at critical infrastructures in Ukraine and Europe as well?
Well, in Europe, the concern is that if this war were to expand by some accident, probably, then the Europeans are not prepared for a war with Russia. They're not prepared for the kind of war that has evolved, which is small, very small units. It's called trickle tactics. If you have more than 2 or 3 soldiers at the front, they become targets for drone attacks. So you have very small units, and you have lots of drones. You have complete visibility of everything in the battle space. Nothing can be hidden anymore. And Europe's armies aren't configured or equipped or trained for that kind of war. So they're having to reconstitute, as it were, having to get their act together so that they are ready for not the Second World War, not the war against the Soviet Union, but the war that might happen going forward. Ukrainians have already adapted. The Russians have already adapted. And they've left NATO Europe far, far behind.
How do you think, how long will it take to catch up for Europe to what the stage that you have mentioned that Russians have adapted and Ukrainians have adapted to?
Well, it will take a long time because it will take, the manuals have to be rewritten, people have to be retrained, units and structures have to be reorganized. It has to be said that a lot of the weapons that Europe would rely on in a shooting war against Russia are being sold to the Ukrainians at the moment. So it's not like the magazines are full, they're kind of empty. So it will take a massive and long-run restructuring. The sooner the Europeans get on that, the better. I'm not suggesting that war will break out with the Russians anytime soon. I think the Russians have their hands full with Ukraine, but one never knows. One never knows what incident or accident could expand this war beyond Russia and Ukraine.
Yes, indeed. And given the slower pace of democratic countries, especially Europe, to advance or to enhance in these things, how do you think they will be navigating between their democratic values and advancing their military and defense capabilities?
It's always been a tricky balance in post-World War II Europe. On the one hand, militarization of the kind that existed in many countries before World War II is really a thing of the past. You don't have universal national service or conscription. The Americans called the draft. You don't have that in most countries. And even if you have it on the books, it hasn't been enforced very rigorously. So the ability to mobilize European populations, that's going to have to be rethought. And that's a tricky balance because it cuts against democracy and kind of post-military values in Europe. And then, of course, there is the guns for butter trade-off. The more money that you spend on healthcare and education and things like that, the less money you have available to invest in defense. Weapons training, supplying troops, etc. So there are a number of balances that have to be struck. After the Cold War, it was easy for Europeans. They thought war was over. The Russians were not a real threat. The Soviet Union was gone. They could divert all the money from defense to welfare state spending. And now they're realizing that that was a big mistake, and they're having to reallocate resources and and shift their attention from the home front, as it were, to the potential front line with Russia in the future. And that's going to be painful.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Professor Andrew for joining us and sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we stay on this region now. Now we move on to Middle East. Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Bagheri